Alright, in this video I want to share with you some hopefully helpful insight and information and perspectives on things such as orthorexia and eating disorders and OCD, as well as healing various kinds of traumas and or abuse. Because while on the surface these things may appear differently, but at their roots they're the same thing. Kind of like you see a really big weird kind of tree. I can't think of any particular species at the moment, but I'm sure you've seen it. And you look, and it looks like it's like a bunch of different things. But then actually, you go down and take it down underground, and realize it's the same tree. You know, there's some plants that are like that. And you're like, oh, it's different. Yay. No, it's the same. It's coming from the same roots. So I really want to break down the mechanics of kind of how these things work in the body and how basically we can just keep going down dead end after dead end after dead end and really be enslaved to this thing that we're supposedly trying to get away from, or we're supposedly trying to heal. You know, I want to dispel a lot of common misconceptions and common myths that really hold people back. And oftentimes people accuse me of being mean or somehow like insensitive or somehow like non-emotional or something like that. But then it's also weird because I'm also like too intense. But it's like, if I'm too intense, then how is are other things true? Anyways, this different tangent. The point I'm trying to get at is my intention, my aim, my focus, my goal, my desire is usually pragmatic and based in efficiency and effectiveness. Because the absolute fact of the matter is our time and our energy and our resources are finite. You only have so much time you can invest in something per day, per week, per month, per year, per lifetime. So wouldn't it make sense to invest some of your time to say, okay, well, how can I make these things the most efficient and effective that they possibly can be? Because that is the most respectful thing that you can do to your life. You can jack yourself off with self-love all day and post things on Instagram and like say affirmations. But at the end of the day, if you're thinking and your actions and your paradigm and your orientation towards life is riddled with illusion, riddled with complete lies, riddled with inefficiency, then is that really self-love? Is that really respecting your life and the gift that you have and the capacities that you have and the real opportunities that you have as a human being here and now in this lifetime to do things and to grow and to share things? Is that really? Or would it be really more so to say, okay, well, how can I have this thing but bring it to its greatest potential or its highest quality of expression within, you know, the context and limitations that I have? So that's kind of where I'm coming from, my goal and my intent and my aim. So if that's cold-hearted or mean to you, then that's just the way the cookie crumbles, as long as it's gluten-free. And I also want to make it clear, like basically 2 points. What I'm speaking from is personal experience, mostly from my own life and dealing with these things and experiencing these things and going to pretty much every extreme you could probably go to. And then also being in this industry, healing, alternative consciousness, whatever, for over 10 years, both as a student, as a consumer, and as a business owner, entrepreneur, consultant, coach, whatever. So a decent amount of experience. Not a lot, but some. And the major overarching point that I really want to get out there, which if you only take away this one thing, it can change your life, change your approach to healing and living in general, is that the number one thing that people go wrong with when it comes to natural healing or natural health, and even allopathic mainstream, is that there's this like quantity or this fixed amount of this evil thing that if you just get out or you just get rid of, then everything will be better. Which obviously in certain small, nuanced, acute situations, that is true. When it comes to your psyche, comes to your feeling quality, the real thing that you are as a human being, it doesn't seem to be as true. Maybe in terms of, algebra it's true, but in terms of like human dynamics, not as true. So what I mean is thinking that like, okay, well, I have all these negative thoughts and I have this like pain or I have this trauma or I have this thing, I have to just get all of this trauma out. If I just get all this trauma out or just get rid of all this stuff, then I'll feel better. Yes, but no, because that's not really how we work. It's more of a qualitative thing. There's not really a fixed amount. It actually doesn't matter. That's not how our body works. It's not how life works. But that's a different conversation. I just want to get that major point out there. Because if you buy into the idea that it's quantity, then you are validating and buying into not only Christianity and monotheistic religion, but also its other head, which is mainstream science and the whole mechanical worldview. Because even though a lot of natural health stuff puts on the robes of being spiritual and being alternative and being new agey or natural, it's based in and is the identical paradigms and assumptions about the world as those other things that I've just listed. So it's not really different. It's not really an alternative. It's the same thing. So getting more into the actual details of the video that I wanted to make, is that basically the mechanics of how this thing works is we have some experience in our life which tells us that in and of itself, we're not okay. In and of ourselves, we are not good enough, or we are a sinner, or we are stained, or we are evil, and we have evil parts of ourselves we have to get rid of, or battle, or fight against, or cleanse, or purify, or elevate, or enlighten, or ascend, some permutation on that. And we have this baseline core of false beliefs, basically, is what they are. They're not true. But they work when you're a kid, kind of, maybe, I don't know. So you have this baseline belief, which could come from an actual trauma from the external world, sexual abuse, emotional abuse, physical abuse, weird family dynamics, war, a lot of different experiences. Or it could just be a really harsh, uptight, standardized environment, which is largely the modern world with religion and its other head of science, which are the same largely. So in many ways, these things are not our fault. This is something we have to kind of start to get our head around, that when we're a kid and this thing happened to us, it's not really our fault. And this is another kind of myth that's really fucking annoying and stupid that spiritual people like to say. Like, oh, everything that happens to you happens for a reason, and you agreed to it. Before you were born, you agreed to be born into this situation and to be abused and to experience these traumas because it's what your soul needed. And if you're a Christian or you're a monotheistic religious person, you believe in that S&M kind of fantasy, then that's your right. However, it has nothing supports it in the physical world, only in the imagination. The reality of the situation is, people think this is like karma and what reincarnation and karma mean, but it has nothing to do with what those things actually mean. This is just people taking Christianity and like thinking, oh, what's like karma? I'm just gonna like interchange them. It's like the same thing. I was bad, so God was punishing me, but then I was good, so God rewards me. So like karma is like the same thing. You just be good and the universe will just give you like a reward, but if you're bad, like the universe will just be mean to you. So that's just what you gotta do. And life is really just this petri dish for you to purify all your evilness so that you can maybe get to the better place later. It's not. That's S&M, isn't it? I don't know. But again, that's your right to believe if you believe that. However, the reason why I'm saying it, the reason why I'm making fun of it is because that belief system, that idea, that conditioning that's so deep and it's so unconscious and it's so put in our system every single day from being a little kid, that's where largely a lot of this stuff comes from. So Because in reality, an experience is an experience. We have pain. It's this feeling thing that eventually dissipates and we keep moving on. However, when that's combined with this laundry list of illusions and lies and pressures and obligations and evil, and then these two things are taken, tied up together, tied in a knot, and this thing happened to me, so, oh, well, I must be bad, they must be bad, I must be evil, I must have done something wrong. Take on all these things, take them, tie them in knots, tie them in knots, tie them in knots, tie them in knots, bury them inside, bury them inside, bury them inside, tie them up, identify with them, take a bunch of emotion, a bunch of emotionality, glue it all together, and then say, well, this is who I am. So then it's no wonder we don't really feel very good. It's no wonder our self-worth isn't very high, because we've had religion and monotheistic kind of dry sciences beating this stuff into our head for a very long time. And then if we have something that happens to us that's bad, it's very easy to say, oh, well, it just happened because of these things. Or the flip side, no one knows why it happened. It's just a chaotic, dead, mean, cold universe. Both are kind of depressing, a little bit painful, and really only set you up for a lifetime of enslavement. So we have these experiences, and basically what happens is at a young age we put up kind of a wall of denial, a wall of disconnection to sort of shield ourselves from this pain and this trauma, which rightfully so, because pain sucks, trauma sucks. Like, obviously, that's a useful thing which our body can do. Kind of like if you break, an arm or you break a bone, you're just gonna like kind of not use it for a while, and your body's gonna like. But then if you don't ever use it, you don't ever move it, it just forms scar tissue, and you actually end up more impotent than you were before. So then that has to be sort of the rehab state where you have to break through and say, oh, goddamn, this fucking hurts, fuck this fucking hurts, ow, 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 ow. But you kind of have to do it to get back to more of a natural state of actually functioning. And this is the thing which no one really wants to do in a realistic way. People will do it in a way to only further like abuse themselves, like kind of an S&M sort of deal. Or they'll do it in a way where they just get more attached to it. Like, oh man, I'm just going through this thing, and like Mercury's doing this and Mars, and I'm purging this thing, and I'm so caught up in this trauma, and I'm just releasing. And again, that's more of the quantitative thing. It's like, oh, there's just so much of this stuff in me that I just got to release, and my whole life is just releasing it, and that's just what I'm doing. It's not real, actually. So anyways, getting back to more of the point. So after we have this sort of wall of denial or this disconnection that happens, we become a bit schizoid. We become a bit psychotic, or a bit more psychotic in a way. Because psychotic just kind of means believing things that aren't true, that aren't real. And then if we believe all of these things which I've listed so far, those are not real or true. So that's by definition a bit psychotic. And as a result, those things cut us off from who we are as a person, who we are in the world, in our experience. So that's actually definition schizophrenic. So you can see how these underlying dynamics can obviously create a whole spectrum of kind of disease wherein we are approaching things in a very salvational way, whether that's our food, our exercise, our diet, our spirituality, our religion. All these things we're approaching, we're grasping, we're holding on to them with all of our desires and all of our pain and all of our suffering, hoping that they'll just please maybe deliver us or save us from these things. Which is not to say that these modalities can't do these things. It just comes back to more of efficiency and effectiveness. It's just that if you approach the right thing in the wrong way, you're probably not going to get the right results. And if you're not willing to go through the necessary foundational basic stages to get those results, you're going to be less likely to even get those results. So, for example, if you approach spirituality and think it's going to give you something, but you're unwilling to get in touch with who and what you actually are right now, you're unwilling to get in touch with your situation as a human being as it actually is on this planet in the here and now, you're unwilling to become first aware of your cultural conditioning and standardization and habituation, which is basically your cause of disease and your cause of disconnect from spirituality. You're unwilling to examine these things, but you think all of the effort in the world, all of the striving, all of the money, all the time, all of the energy, all of the hope, all of the affirmation, all the imagination, all the yoga classes, all the things are gonna do it. Can you see how that doesn't really make sense? Or you think I'm gonna go to this therapist and get this modality and they'll fix me, they'll do it for me. It's not real. And this is the thing that no one wants to hear. This is the thing that no one is really saying in the world, is that ultimately no one knows. Like when it comes to healing and it comes to these types of things in life, it's a mystery. And our willingness to be okay with mystery, our willingness to be okay with unknown, is indicative of our level of actual disease. Because if we go all the way back to what I was saying earlier, what I was talking about with not being able to trust life, not being able to trust your body, and the feeling this deep need to control and manipulate everything. Well, that is basically and exactly saying that fuck mystery, fuck the unknown. I have no tolerance or no ability to adapt or deal with it, so I need these compensatory things. Which then, if you look at the modern world, that's the predominant mindset. The modern world which says, fuck the unknown, we got it all figured out. Or if it doesn't fit into our paradigm, it doesn't exist. That's basically how this thing works. So perhaps in a way you're starting to see how this disease state that I'm describing on the small scale is reflected on the large scale in our society. And how people talk all boatloads of shit of changing the world and healing the world and healing Mother Gaia and all this nonsense. But they have no awareness, no connection, no perception of what I'm talking about, which is the sameness. They'll chant all is one. They'll chant as above, so below. They'll chant micro, macro. But will they take the step to connect the dots and see it in here and say, oh, fuck, this disease pattern that is out here in the world that I'm blaming and I'm demonizing and I'm villainizing and I'm blaming it on all of these people and I'm protesting and I'm doing all these things. But am I actually saying, oh yeah, that's actually in my psyche as well, it's in my dynamic, because I've been conditioned within the same world as all of these other people. So I'm actually not different. So maybe all of this supposedly spirituality, supposedly alternative, whatever, is just another clever guise to allow a person to feel superior or to feel different or above or separate from other people, which is again kind of a blatant contradiction. If you're saying all is one, you're saying it's all connected, you're saying as above, so below, but your whole mindset and your intention is fundamentally to put yourself above other people and separate yourself and disconnect you from other people. It kind of doesn't make any fucking sense at all, and it kind of just makes me personally want to puke. But that's the world we're living in, and I'm trying to be somewhat constructive and point out and make it clear so that we can maybe see it and maybe start to engage more efficiently and effectively. So, what was the original point of that? I don't remember. So, getting back more in touch with the fact that we don't really know, and maybe it is a bit of a mystery, and things are a bit unknown. It's uncomfortable, yeah. It sucks, yeah. But we perhaps might want to be interested to investigate, well, what is my actual experience? Like, what is really going on here? Like, what's really the deal? Could be more useful. So now I want to get into sort of ways in which these things show up a bit more, and then loop back around to like how to and like practicality sort of things. So what happens is we have this initial sort of imprint sort of thing that I've been talking about kind of in many different ways. And that shows up as a rigid sort of strong desire for religion and spirituality. Because these things often function as sort of creating demand to sell supply. And again, I want to be clear and explicit that I'm not putting anything down. Because to be honest with you, I dedicate the vast majority of my time and energy towards spiritual matters. Like my whole life is basically just that. I don't really give a shit about much else. I just don't put flowery language on it. I don't elevate it as anything special or otherworldly or mystical. I don't. That just seems to be a bit extraneous and stupid. Because if it were otherworldly, then I would be in another world, but I'm not, so it isn't. So again, I'm not putting any of this stuff down. I'm not saying any of it's bad. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. I'm talking about how we approach it. I'm talking about the actual dynamics in our being. I'm talking about our psyche, our quality of experience. That's what I'm talking about, not the external thing. So please be clear on that. And yeah. So these things kind of create this thing together, and people will approach these things like I was just explaining in this very salvational way. Which we can oftentimes really look at and be like, oh, that person's just like a crazy religious zealot nutter person, and they only talk to people that go to their church, and they only talk to people that have their beliefs, and they're always trying to convert people, and they're always, talking about the evil in the world and blah, blah, blah. But then we might take all those things and say, wait a minute, do you know any vegans like that? Do you know any raw foodists like that? Do you know any CrossFit people like that? Do you know any paleo people like that? Do you know any yoga people like that? Do you know any Tai Chi people like that? Do you know any Chinese medicine people like that? I could keep listing things that people do in the identical way, just under a different umbrella. Or atheist, or rigid science, whatever. It doesn't matter. It's the same at the core. And then another thing that we can go to in a very salvational way is health and fitness. And if you've ever been to a gym, you've seen that. If you've ever been on Instagram, you've seen it. And really modern times, that's, again, could be yoga, or could be lifting weights. It's basically same. And then the third thing is drugs, alcohol, sex, and love addictions. And, there's no fault to the person. There's no fault in any of these things, because if you're in pain and you think life is mundane and boring and dreadful, then yeah, it makes sense. Like, I get that. I strongly have a distaste for many mundane things in life. Like, fucking hate doing taxes and a lot of other things of that nature. So I really understand. I hated school my whole life. Even dating, I fucking hate it for the most part. Hanging out with people a lot of times, I'm not really a fan. And I tried to do all these things for many years because I was afraid. But mostly all it got me was stress and anxiety and disease. But now I'm in a different place, and whatever, have better friends, have better relationships, have things that are of better quality that I actually enjoy and don't feel like such a waste. That's anyways a tangent. I'm just trying to illustrate that I get the mindset, and I've been through all of these things, whether it's religious stuff, spiritual stuff, health and fitness stuff, lifting weights, running, drugs, not really alcohol too much, but definitely sex, like definitely that, and love, addiction. So I completely, I understand this desire to transcend the mundane. However, have we ever considered, well, why do I feel like this world is such a shit pile? Why do I feel like I'm such a toxic, disease-ridden, evil thing? Is that really true? Like, or did someone just tell me that at a young age and put that in my psyche, and then I had a feeling experience, and then somehow those two things got tied up in a knot? Could be. So the fourth point is maybe why. Well, as I hinted upon earlier, many of these things are not really our fault. It's not really something we did. Unless you want to be S&M about it and take that bullshit onto yourself too, which is more power to you, but in reality, not really. It's just a situation we find ourselves in, so we can ask practical questions and say, well, what can we do? Here we are. What's the most practical thing we can do in the most efficient and effective way based on where I am right now? That's intelligence. That's consciousness. That's awareness. That's actually going with life rather than against it. So we can understand these things first. And I know it might not be easy because maybe we had a really traumatic experience and that really fucking hurts. Get that. We can also start to look at that these things are so deeply embedded within our culture that it is a highly individual and private and, dare I say, legitimately spiritual act to go into these waters. Because for a very long time, our modern society has been telling us these are evil and bad. Because, believe it or not, I know this might sound weird, but religion, at least in the Western world, has always had strong ties to feudalism, meaning like ruling bodies or governments. And science also has always had very strong ties, still to the present day, to power institutions, whether those are corporations or religions or governments or at another level, those things are actually all the same. They're just different arms. But that's a different kind of thing. So just understanding that these things basically, for a very long time in modern world, by modern I mean like white history of this plague on our planet of genocide and destruction of the environment and destruction of indigenous cultures and destruction of anything that isn't this homogenous, pasteurized, standardized view of the world. So, and we have to understand that those things exist for their own reasons, which is that's fair play. They have their right to do what they want to do, just like I have the right to do this, and you have the right to do whatever you're doing. That's just humanity, right? This is just the planet we find ourselves on. But we also have the right to see it for what it is and to say, nah, it's not for me. And then many people will do that. That's a very easy step because all it takes is anger. All it takes is apathy. All it takes is watching a video. But then what are you going to do? Are you going to just like not live? You're going to just like live in the woods? Not really. I mean, some people do that and more power to them. But we still have to function in this world, and that creates a conflict. Because you're like, I see all this stuff, and I'm really upset about it, and it sucks. Like these banking institutions, these power institutions, but I still have to bank. I still have to use money. I still have to drive a car. I still have to do all these things. Fuck. That's like another stage. So you have the option to say, well, fuck everything, and you stay in this apathetic, angry, abused, traumatized state, or to take a different course and say, well, where can I actually have freedom? Where can I actually have change and transformation and some degree of autonomy? Well, it comes down to our actual experience, which is what we actually are, which is our thoughts, our feelings, this actual qualitative experience, which is our body, which is a natural, spontaneous, responsive process of continuity that is in and of itself so. So this is what, when we start to actually get in touch with really what is reality, like what are we actually doing? What is this actual like experience? What is really going on here? Then we actually regain a lot of energy, regain a lot of health, regain a lot of chi. And then over time, our body can naturally sort of let these things go in its own time. But if we're not willing to actually take that other step and realize that these things exist inside with us as well, then we're just part of the problem. We're not really even doing anything. We're just still disengaged from our own experience. And then once we actually see things and become more clear, the world becomes much different. And to be totally honest, I still go in waves. I used to be a lot worse, where I'm like, I can't fucking deal with anything. I'm just so fucking angry. And I would just like really try to isolate. And then over the last year-ish or so, I've had really times where I'm able to more and more laugh, more and more not be affected by things, more and more see things for what they are, not take it personally or whatever. And I still have good days and bad days, just because I'm a fucking person. Oh my God. Like, what do you know? Learning, growing, whatever. Uh, but what is indicating is that it's possible, and that I know other people that are further, not further, but more experienced in the world or in the genre, and they're even less affected by things. They're even more clear, even more perceptive and aware of what's going on. So it's like, okay, this is like a real thing and it's possible. Okay, that's inspiration. That's help. That's useful. So it's really comes down to these things. And then when we get in touch with these things and then someone comes at us with that thing, like it just becomes so, it just feels like a joke sometimes. Like, for example, this happened a week or two ago. I wrote this article on Elephant Journal. I think it was called Why Modern Pop Spirituality is Impotent, Empty, and Superstitious. And the major point that I made in the article was that it was really arrogant, ignorant, and disrespectful to say, like, oh, all paths lead up the same mountain, all is one, all traditions are doing the same things, and this basic generic ideas. Spend 1,000 words breaking down and explaining it. And then someone posted a comment on that article, said, well, if you do Tai Chi and like meditation, but I do ayahuasca, I don't really see what the difference is. And I hope they were joking. I'm pretty 99% sure that they were not, but I'm, I can't even take it seriously. I'm just like, huh? Also, like in that video I did recently about why I don't trust people. It's not that I don't really trust people, it's kind of tongue in cheek. It's also realizing, trusting there's nothing to trust in the first place. But also, it was just kind of like a joke. And what I'm saying is, once you start to get clear on what your actual experience is and get in touch with yourself and your own ridiculousness and your own stupidity and your own ignorance, and then people say things to you, and then this dialogue happens, and you're like, huh? Or like another couple weeks ago, I was texting with a person, and they were creating this kind of situation wherein they were upset with me because they expected I was supposed to do something, but I didn't, and then they were mad at me. But none of this was like communicated to me prior. It was like they made up an idea what I was supposed to do without even communicating to me or even being around me, and then got mad at me for not doing it and made up a whole huge deal, when in reality I hadn't talked to the person in a long time. It was a whole other thing. Can't really get into it. Basically, the moral of the story is they were blaming me for a thing and expecting me to like fix this thing, which I didn't actually do, but they made up in their head in the first place. And I just said, I'm not interested in being like, in a relationship where I'm like the villain that's blamed for everything, but the villain that also needs to save the day. And they're just like, what are you talking about? I have no idea what that means. Like, I'm sorry you feel that way. It's like, that's exactly what you just said. And they're just like, how am I blaming you? And I just like copied and pasted their text. I'm like, this sentence is an explicit blame. Just like, whoa. But it's just kind of what I mean. And that's just kind of a side tangent, me being self-indulgent. But, so now what? What can we do following on that? Well, certain things such as honesty, certain things such as willingness to even fucking do it. And within this willingness, there is going to be an encouragement for me to you to be more self-centered, to be more selfish, to be more critical, to be more judgmental of the right things in the right way. Because to be willing to engage and participate within these things, to be willing and able to be more honest, you're going to meet resistance. Oh, I'm not good enough, or I don't deserve this, or I'm not smart enough, or I'm stupid, or I don't know enough, or I didn't go to school, or I didn't do this, and I didn't do that, blah, 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 blah. And then if you try to do that in the world, you're just going to meet resistance from people. Oh, you're fucking this, you're fucking that, nah, 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 nah. Which sometimes is true, sometimes it isn't. At which point, it's helpful to have people in your life that are smart. It's helpful to have a degree of humor and honesty and humility within your situation to be able to navigate the things cleanly and efficiently. Because, for example, we talk about honesty, we talk about authenticity. Yeah, but if you go to a library and your authenticity and your honesty is like to yell and like sing songs, that's really not intelligent. That's pretty fucking stupid because it's coming at the expense of a bunch of other people. But you're like, oh, bro, I'm just being authentic. It's like, no, you're being a fucking moron is what you're doing. And maybe you're a fucking moron, so in some sense it is authentic, but it's fucking annoying, so shut the fuck up and please go somewhere else. Drop dead. But people do this a lot, and they use it as like an emotional like jab or like a cop out in conversation. Like, oh, I'm just being authentic. No, you're just being fucking stupid. Or like if you're, I also just recently wrote an article called "Why Being in the Present Moment is a Waste of Time," and it's a joke. There's a lot of jokes in the article, but it's basically like I was having a conversation with someone talking about how being in the present moment is a waste of time because you can't not be in the present moment, and all of the efforting to be in the present moment is actually just creating more stress and anxiety and pressure and compulsion and sort of anxiety within your system because you can't ever not be in the present moment because the present moment is fundamentally all there ever is and all there ever will be. And that it's a complete misunderstanding of that whole teaching and that whole principle in the first place because the principle in the teaching is not to literally do the thing, is to get you in touch with the actual condition of which you are finding yourself in all the fucking time. That's the point. That's also largely kind of what I'm talking about here. But the person was like, I don't know, I just don't understand what you're saying. I just can't get it. I'm like, yeah, you can't get what I'm saying because you're trying to be too present. Which is kind of hilarious because if the person was actually present, they would actually be hearing what you're saying, but they're not, so they're not. But then their whole life and their whole lifestyle and their whole practice is about being present, but they're so present that they can't even hear what the fuck you're actually saying because they're just so present. That makes how much sense? Not that much. But it's hilarious to me because it's just this layer of extra anxiety that people lay upon themselves when, like what I've been saying in this video, we approach things in a religious salvational way, like, oh, well, I was raised on the Ten Commandments, and I was raised on the periodic table of elements, and I was raised on the law of this, and the law of this, and the law of this, and the law of this, so I hear about karma, I hear about compassion, I hear about mindfulness, I hear about being in the present, so that's just like another law that I gotta follow. So now, I'm gonna get my little meditation posture, I'm gonna watch my little breath, and I'm gonna just be in the present moment, I'm not gonna have any thoughts. No, that's not what it means. That's what it means if you're a little kid. But the point of it is not the point. The point of it is like a joke. The point of it is to get you in touch with something. What is that something? I don't know. It's kind of outside the scope of this video. It's not something I really want to go into anymore. So this honesty is willingness and also a degree of humor and humility. What the fuck do I mean by humility? What do I mean by these terms? I don't mean any of these terms in moralistic way. Because this is like really annoying to me. As if you probably couldn't tell, when people hear of these Eastern or ancient terminology and just take all of their Western baggage and just put it on there, like, oh, I practice compassion. Like, dude, it's not a moral thing. It's not a hard rule. It's not this thing. You just don't understand what the fuck you're talking about because you think it's like the Ten Commandments, or you were raised on the idea that the martyr is like the highest expression of goodness because Jesus died for our sins and he was a martyr and God gave his only son for us. And no, that's fucking stupid. Like, try being a martyr. I'm sure you probably have in your life. How's it feel? How's it working? That's not so good because no one gives a fuck. Because the funny thing is, Jesus gave his life for a bunch of people who don't give a fuck about Jesus and only give a fuck about themselves. Because all they are is using Jesus for their own personal scapegoat and their own personal savior. Does that sound selfish? In the slightest. I don't know. Does that? I don't know. I'm gonna give my life for a bunch of people who don't give a fuck about me and only give a fuck about themselves. They're only using me as a springboard for their own selfish fucking desires because they don't want to actually engage with their own process of life and they don't want to actually experience any kind of pain or any kind of growth in their life. They just want a stagnation of safe little itty bitty rules, and this is only what I can do because this is all what's safe. Fuck the rest of life. Fuck life itself. Fuck the existence. Fuck this gift that I was given. Fuck everyone. Fuck all of my ancestors that worked so hard to get me here. Fuck all of their hard work and their whole lineage and all of their pain and suffering to get me here so I could have this experience. Fuck all that. I'm just going to stay here because that's all that's safe. Because that's what God wants me to do. Because he gave his life for me. Because it's all about me. Right. Right. So humility. This is an important thing to actually be a little bit more serious. It's very easy to think, oh, I have this pain. I have this thing. I'm very rare, I'm unique, or I'm special. Not the case. It's more like, oh, you were traumatized? Come on, join the club. jump in with the rest of humanity. Oh, you experienced heartbreak? Oh, your parents did something to you or didn't do something to you, or oh, this happened? Come on in. Join the rest of humanity throughout the rest of time. You're not alone. And it only seems weird because you've been raised your whole life with Disney fairy tales and romance and Victorian idealism and Puritanism and yay. None of that's actually real. That's just some shit white people made up that were probably high as fuck on opium or high as fuck on something. They made that shit up because they were high as fuck and it sounded great. Because when you're high on opium, that feels pretty idyllic. Everything feels pretty much like one-sided. But then when you come down, it kind of is the other side. So, And that's a really interesting study. Is all right. This myth came from here. Well, what drugs were those people on? Is there a correlation? I don't know. Just something to think about. So, humility, realizing that, yeah, you had this thing, so did I, so did pretty much everyone else. The issue is that the vast majority of people will not be willing to be honest with that. And or they will not be willing to be humble and humorous about that. Humble meaning, yeah, I had it, so what? It's not really that big of a deal. And the opposite of that, what I mean is, oh my god, I have this experience, and it's so bad. And it's just so hard, and I've just been struggling with it for so long, and I just need you to help me. And I've gotten a lot of those emails. I've been that person too. I mean, we've all done it. We all even feel that way sometimes. We all have those moments where we're just like, I have nothing. What is going on? I have nothing. I have no power. I'm just this helpless creature. We all have that experience. It's part of life. It's not that big of a deal. If you really make that your identity and you stay there, that's a little bit crazy. But fuck it, you have the experience every once in a while and be like, man, this is crazy. And then what do? You probably go to the bathroom, take a piss, probably get on your computer, watch some porn, masturbate. I'm hungry. On to the next thing. Keep going. So really within these things implies a more stronger degree of actually taking care of yourself, which is tricky to say because some people are so at the low end of the spectrum of self-esteem that they really need to hear that. Some people are fucking selfish, arrogant dickwads, and they maybe need to see a little bit more of their actual situation. And maybe not. Or actually maybe understand that their self is really not that real and is actually irrelevant. But see, it gets tricky to say that because if I'm like, yeah, who you actually are is really irrelevant and is actually not real. It's really not a big deal and no one really cares. Say that to someone with really low self-esteem, that's in a really delicate state, that's been a doormat their whole life, might not be that helpful. But someone who's been an arrogant dickwad their whole life, they're probably not going to hear it anyways, or they're probably just going to get angry and defensive. So it's kind of a different kind of scenario and context. But if we actually explore more of what our real state is, we might see some validity in those. And then out of those understandings, we can naturally have a bit more humor, a bit more honesty, a bit more humility, because they all kind of go together. But they're based in an understanding of our experience, not a rule to do because it's good for you. Because honestly, most people don't like honesty. Most people don't really care for it. That's what our society is based on, lies. And it's not necessarily a bad thing, because sometimes a lie is more useful than the truth if it can move you through a thing or get you to a certain place. So hopefully this has been helpful in some way. I really don't know. This video has taken many turns and has gone in many directions of which I did not originally foresee. But really the major point is that, first off, we've all experienced these things. Sure. And second of all, the importance of starting to break through our layers of denial, our layers of deception, and actually start to get in touch with our real experience as it is. And sure, we can practice external things and do whatever, but perhaps really shift and get in touch with how we're approaching them and why we're approaching them in the way in which we are, and from which that approach might be useful in certain contexts, might be not useful in other contexts. Because you only really have one life, or maybe you don't, I don't know. But either way, it kind of makes sense to be respectful of the life that you have now and to cultivate it or have it be efficient and effective or useful or something. I don't fucking know. And the third thing is realizing that a lot of it isn't really our fault, up to a certain point, because we've been beaten in the head with this information for a very long time, and it was put in our head when we were very young and undeveloped. So once we reach a certain age, though, it becomes a little bit more of our fault, because we have the opportunity, we have the capacity, we have the resources to do so, but we choose not to. We choose to stay in an infantile state. We choose to stay in that injured, kind of like favoring state. We choose to like keep limping through the course of our life, which again, that's our right to do. If that's what we want to do. Because I really don't recommend any of this shit. I mean, honestly, live in ignorance, live in denial, live in delusion. Like, please, like, don't even fucking bother, is really what I should say. Just like the other day, I had or maybe a couple weeks ago, I had some really intense, like, deep body work. And in the middle, I was like, man, fuck this. I was like, just give me a couple bottles of delusion and a nice Swedish massage, and like, I'm gonna be way happier. Like, it sounds like a silly joke, because in that moment it hurt so bad and it was like so annoying, and I was like just feeling angry. I was like, ah, man, fuck this. It's just like, I will never recommend this shit to people. Like, I'm like, dude, I will not refer my friends to you. Like, you fucking suck. I hate you. I hope you die. But I go see him every couple of weeks, so what does that say about me? Anyways, hopefully this has been helpful and shed some kind of insight and perspective on the roots of these supposedly different manifestations, when in reality they're the same. Have the same roots, have the same dynamics, and probably have similar kind of solutions. So anyways, thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you soon.